going to be an interesting part because, first of all, Munawar Misbah Moin, the Group Director of Rahimafrooz, will moderate the panel discussion. And I'm sure at some stage he'll throw it open to the floor. But this is your actually first-hand opportunity of quizzing some of the leading business personalities in Bangladesh, particularly the people who will be joining us on stage, Abrar A. Anwar, the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bangladesh. And we'll also be having Mr. Dowla from ACI on stage, as will Ferhat Anwar. So 3 people, you have an academic view and 2 very specific business views, one from the banking sector and the other from a large agrochemical sector. So those are the people you're going to listen to. May I now request, are we ready here? Okay, so could I request Munawar Misbah Moin, the Group Director of Rahimafrooz, to join us on stage because he will moderate the panel. May I request Abrar Anwar, the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bangladesh, Mr. Dowla of ACI, and Ferhat Anwar. Over to you, Moin.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Thank you to Brand Forum for organizing this wonderful session year on year. Big hands to them. As everybody has been introduced, I wouldn't go through that process again. I'll just give a small intro note, and then I will let my friends out here to give their own perspective on what we are talking about, realizing potential, the Bangladesh perspective. So when we talk about realizing potential, essentially, if you look at from a country perspective, you start with realizing the resources first. And when we talk about resource, it usually starts with the natural resource and the people resource. And today we are specifically talking about leadership resource. And that could be whether in government, politics, business, civil society, academia, sports, and so on. I'll share a bit of my own perspective to the whole leadership issue. I don't know if I'm the young or the old board member that Ms. Ripa Rashid was talking about, 22 years into the family business. It is leadership that drives people resource at every level of our community and society. Individual passion, excellence, and collective synergy unleash the limitless potential for prosperity and happiness. I'm going to refer to my favorite CEO that Ms. Ripa Rashid said bangs on the table, Jack Welch. Jack Welch is considered, as you all know, the most successful CEO of the last few decades. And he put it very succinctly that GE is a factory producing leaders. And I loved when he said that. And we just happen to make aircraft engines, medical devices, and provide financial services. And that was a beautiful way how Jack Welch talked about how GE grooms leaders. And his philosophy, I don't know, a lot of you may have heard about it, the philosophy of 4E wrapped in a P, which is basically he believes leaders must be full of energy, must be able to energize, must have plans and goals which keeps everybody on the edge, and at the end of the day, does a fantastic job of executing it, and does all this with full of passion. And I believe as leaders, we all would love to have these qualities. Winning is a quality thing. A successful leader is not the one with the most, but the one who contributes the most. Contribution is an essential aspect of leadership. Some are born leaders, and some are leadership by personal choice. The 2 most important days for any of us sitting here, for any of us, is the day we are born and the day we realize the purpose of our life. Leadership is also about choice of 2 things. You can be a leader with the pain of discipline or the pain of regrets. Nothing is easy. Leadership is hard work. That's the truth. A lot of what I'm going to say will also resonate with what Mr. Sanjeev and Ms. Ripa talked about, but perhaps in different words. Leadership signature is also about consistency. Reliability is core component of leadership, and consistency is all about reliability. Reliability makes the leader trustworthy to deliver what is promised and what is committed, which is very essential, walking the talk. And success does not come about just like that. Success for leaders is also about where opportunity meets preparation. So it's about commitment, it's about adaptability, it's about persistence, it's about investment. Successful leader transforms aspiration to reality. There was a little bit of talk about meritocracy and nepotism. A successful leader has a culture and also develops a culture of compassionate meritocracy. Coming to leaders and team, I believe leaders, when they build their team, needs to ensure everybody understands the value of the others and being together, each other in the team, and why are we all in it together. Leadership should surround themselves with right people. And they focus to bring the right people on board. I think that's the most challenging job any one of us I find personally at my level, is the challenge of bringing the right people on board, and that's our role and that's our responsibility. However difficult the world may be out there. Value first, competency next. I have lifelong lessons of my own in that one. Whenever you compromise there, you're asking for trouble. Team is a mix of unique abilities brought together by the leader to deliver much more, driven on common values and aspiration. Rewards, engagement, contribution, and outcome. Not only outcome, but contribution and engagement. And in today's world, as leaders, we also need to take cognizance of technology, environment, climate change, seamless global connectivity, multiple generations all working together, social media, all impacting what is it that we want to drive and we all want to do. There was something about communication that both the previous leaders talked about, and is absolutely so true. Leaders must be able to create an environment that encourages candid and genuine conversation, discourse, dialogue, deliberation. Leaders must be able to unite the hearts to move forward together. If we look at our successful sectors, from the garments to textiles to agriculture, NGO, renewables, energy, pharmaceuticals, mobile telephony, banking, mobile money, sports, arts, and so on, we will definitely find leadership quality attributes connecting all across in leaders in these sectors. You know, when we know these people at personal level in these sectors, we will definitely find some of the qualities that I spoke just now. So like leaders out there in different sectors in our country, we also have today in our panel some of those members who are leaders in their sectors and also impacting in this nation building in the process. So you all have been introduced already to Mr. Abrar Anwar, Dr. Arif Dowla, Professor Ferhat Anwar. So what I'm going to request each of them in their own personal, because as somebody said, there is nothing like a personal story. Sorry, before I go, I'll share one personal story from GE's leadership factory. I have a personal experience in that one. We used to be connected to GE almost 10, 15 years back. And I was in one of their global factory, I call it, in their Delhi office. And so in this global factory office in Delhi, one day I happened to just out of the blue ask a question to one of the GE top leaders of India team that, would you like to work for us and come to Bangladesh? It was something that just, I don't know how it came in the middle of a lunch meeting with them. And this guy just looked at me for a second. I looked at him. And I said he would say, you're crazy. but that did not happen. He said, I'll think about it. So I really loved that initial answer. Then 10 days later, he said, okay, I take up the challenge and I'll come back. So from zero in 5 years, that person created a $20 million energy service company for us. That was the most amazing story, that how leaders are built. And I still remember one of my friend in whose factory this particular person had gone to sell a generator. He picked the phone and called me back and he said, Munawar, if you have CEOs like this in your company, I really don't need to know you. So it's always good to know about companies who can actually deliver leaders who can go out there and create more success stories. So for the time being, that's my small personal note. So I think I'll go on a sequence. Is that okay? Or Arif, you want to start? Yeah, okay. So I'll ask first Dr. Arif Dowla to give his perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not that well. I'll try to do my best. One thing is that for us, I'll try to give, I know this is a broad topic, realizing potential and leadership. So I'll just try to talk about a slightly narrower angle in terms of how an organization starts realizing some potential, some business potential that exists in the society. So I just give sort of a rough algorithm and highlight some of the areas that need to be focused. One of them is first identifying an important fundamental social need and that requires quite a bit of thought, that what are the pressing needs, the next level needs of the society in which you live, because that's where your customers will come from. And when you have a reasonably strong view on that, then you look at your organization and your organization's capabilities and try to see if there is a possibility that you can build a bridge between that need and what your organization is capable of. Then the third step, once those two things are sort of playing in your mind, the third step is to look at how others, that is outside the country or within the country, how are others addressing that problem? And then along that way, as you think through that, you look at whether solving that problem is financially sustainable so that you can actually create the dynamics required. So I look at this as the first step of realizing potential. Identifying need, combining it with organizational capability, looking at the distance between those two. Do you have the expertise? Then is there some financial sustainability? And then, of course, going through a reasonable in-depth study of how others are solving this problem. This is the first step of sort of coming up with an idea for a large organization with a lot of capabilities to think about what is the next step of growth to realize some potential. Then is, I think, the most important part, which is the leadership part. You start building consensus around it. So you know that there is some kind of purpose, and that requires a lot of communication. You start thinking about why you want to do this, and you start building an internal team within your organization, the members who are going to have the expertise and the capability to actually activate that activity. Those are the people with whom you should start talking about purpose and ideas. And it should be loosely held so that there is plurality and there is multiple perspectives, and each member can come in and contribute and co-create that, that vision. It should not be the vision of the CEO. I definitely think that it should be something that comes from many minds, junior, senior, doesn't matter. It should be there should be a lot of debate, and there should be an allowance for the plurality of motivations. That means human beings are motivated by different things. We should not try to dictate that too much. Rather, we should allow the plurality of different mindsets to co-create and then build that consensus. Okay, so that's the middle step, and that's, I think, the biggest part of the leadership journey. That is bringing people together, bringing ideas together, and make sure that there is enough churn of ideas. I think meritocracy is about considering many ideas and sifting through them, eliminating, and always that debate to happen. And that requires low hierarchy. You cannot have too much of a authoritarian structure because that takes away from the intellectual resources that are coming in. And there is a lot of talent that people have. I think in Bangladesh, one of the things is that people don't appreciate the amount of talent that their subordinates have. But actually, they are oftentimes much smarter than you. And I think this is something that we should not have too much hierarchy. We should allow everybody to speak, and their ideas should come in, and we should have pure meritocracy. So the flatter the organization, the better, as far as building the team consensus. Plus, at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to fight. And you have enough team members and build purpose and clarity. The more clarity you can bring, and more purpose and more plurality, these three components is a deadly mixture for success. And last point I want to mention is that during this process, there should be nothing but authenticity. Never say anything you don't fully believe from the bottom of your heart. You do that, you see, you're finished. I think this is very important. Okay, and then the last part, after you have built a consensus and you have got a team and now you're ready to do a pilot project, ready to move out into the market, there has to be some grammar. Initially, you have to allow for failure. Little bit of failure here and there, you should not overreact, because these are authentic, genuine people working hard, and they are competent people. A little bit of mistake here and there, we should not overreact. We should be supportive. And then, what is very, very important is three things of this end part. One is continuous change and improvement in your business model. That means refine, revisit, and get third, outside in perspective. Try to get criticism from outside. It's very valuable. You know, you must have people who are not within the system to criticize what you're doing. And that is actually the currency of improvement. And another component is, of course, good governance and values, upgrading to systems and processes. Initially, you're doing a pilot project. It's not going to be efficient. It's not going to serve your customer consistently, and it's not going to give them the efficiency and consistency, two important factors, eventually come as an outcome of systems and processes. So you graduate to systems and processes. Initially, there is a little bit of chaos, and you go to that direction. And very, very important, listen to your customers. Always stay on the ground by listening to them. And this combination of things, I think, is a sort of an algorithm that I roughly use to make sure that my organization delivers the goods at the end of the day. Just two or three areas where I want to emphasize, which I think would be important, is one, the idea of plurality and allowing for multiple types of motivation to work is very important. We cannot dictate the people to allow their heart and soul to find its own path. Each one has a different dynamics. So that one, I think, sometimes is crushed in an organization. That should not be the case. Another angle is self-criticism and welcoming criticism, having the bravery and the courage to accept criticism and work with that. It is not, authoritarian leadership is not the sign of courage. The sign of courage is the power to accept that we are mostly wrong, very rarely right, and if we are right, we don't know why, and we are lucky. So it's very important to take that pain of taking criticism. These two I want to highlight because I think they are less present in our society, and we have to open our door to the fact that we are mostly wrong, and being right is a very bad thing. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Arif. I love his concept of algorithm, because most of you know he's a doctorate in mathematics, so that's where it all comes from. Before I go to the next speaker, Abrar, just a note from the organizers. So hashtag Leadership Summit. That's where the questions will be taken. So if you can send out the questions online, so they will be taking the questions from there and not sort of live one-on-one that we did. So Abrar, it's your turn.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks to Brand Forum and also the sponsors, I think, for this very timely summit. And it's a very important topic, leadership, realizing potential, the Leadership Summit. First of all, I will just talk about, define the potential that Bangladesh is having, or what I see from our perspective, from a financial institution's perspective, and then talk about my leadership journey and my learning. And in fact, I've met a lot of leaders here already, very good entrepreneurs are all sitting here. Really glad to see all of them. So I will just share my experience in my journey of leadership. As we all know, or some of you know, Bangladesh is now considered as one of the 5 frontier markets, a country that has been consistently growing over the last decade at around 6% of GDP, with least volatility. If you look at the peer countries of similar credit rating, I think country has shown resilience over this period of time, where the globe has gone through quite a bit of, I would say, event risks in terms of, in 2008 financial crisis, and there was also country-specific issue in 2005 when the quota was withdrawn from the garment sector. But definitely our entrepreneurs, we are so proud of them. They have really sailed through this resilience. And you'll be happy to know that I think country is now hitting at an inflection point of breaking the 6% GDP growth, moving towards 7% plus, and progressively the internal per capita income is now reached around 1400. So that is also having quite a bit of impact in the domestic demand that we can see, which is driving various potential in the domestic market. Plus, on top of that, we see international trade is growing nicely in spite of the current situation in the US, EU, and our linked countries. That's where we are doing trade. And obviously, the potential lies because we are having a very good geographic position with the connecting with ASEAN and growth of South Asia. Basically, global GDP growth momentum is moving towards this region. So whether in the landscape we are seeing that opportunity coming in or not. Then we have our remittances, 15 billion, and also our very young population. So all these are ingredients for a very high potential future for Bangladesh. Definitely there are challenges. Challenges are like infrastructure, we all know, but that is an opportunity as well. As a financier, we see that there is enough opportunities for us to invest in infrastructure. And there is no demand risk per se for many of these critical infrastructure. And also you'll be happy to know capital raising is a challenge, whereas Bangladesh has demonstrated that it is very low in external debt with only 15% of GDP, whereas in comparable countries, it's around 70% of GDP. So there is enough leveraging capacity that the country has still to raise the capital and invest for the growth. But definitely it will not happen in a vacuum. There has to be leadership driving this vision, driving this energy towards the opportunity space that poses the country. So that's why I think it is very important that we are talking about the leadership that needs to be harnessed not only in corporation but individually all of us would need to demonstrate the kind of leadership that will take us and help us realizing the potential that awaits Bangladesh. So from my leadership journey, I worked in the banking sector for 25 years now, and mostly in multinational, basically in multinational banks, ANZ, Citigroup, and now Standard Chartered. So some of my learnings I would like to share if it's relevant and also can be helpful to anyone listening in. I think the first starting point is the passion. Whether we have found the work or the job that where we have the passion, I think that is most critical. Otherwise, people will, will be tired, will not be having the energy to work towards that. And I found that we should consider that learning is a journey, and it's not a destination that we can say that, oh, I've learned enough and I'll stop learning. But even I found it very useful to learn from the youngest colleague that is just joining tomorrow, and also even from my children. I think it's a learning. We have to have our brains open to pick and choose the learning materials that are around us. And these days, for youngsters, it's very easy because the world is in our fingertips in the digital era. I think not only in the book, but I would encourage the youngsters who may be sitting here. I think community engagement is also a big learning. How do we engage and find ourselves relevant in context of the community? That will give some leadership perspective and be able to put our feet on the ground. I think the previous speaker, Ms. Ripa Rashid, also mentioned taking up challenges. I think it is very important. Sometimes we become very comfortable in our comfort zone that what we are doing. I think taking up challenges, saying yes to challenges is very, very important. Another thing that I found is very, very critical for a success of a leader is to understand, build, and nurture a stakeholder network. Asking the question, who are important for my success, for my organization's success? And then mapping out a stakeholder map or a network, and then building on that, nurturing that, and investing that. Investing is not money. Investing is like spending time, thinking about the stakeholder network, and supporting that network. Inclusive leadership, we have all heard, inclusive leadership, but I found it to be critical for my journeys because the sooner we realize that we are incomplete leaders, it is better for us. I mean, we can't be knowing everything. So, if we have collaborative leadership and realizing the potential of each individual bringing into the table, sooner we realize that, better it is for our harnessing leadership. And I think there are a lot of recruiting managers here, maybe HR heads are also here. We need to come out from the old mindset that if I recruit a very smart person, will that person be a threat to me? I think that's a very wrong notion. We should always strive to recruit a better person, a person better than me, because that person will keep on challenging the seniors, and then we keep on learning on that basis. And there was discussion about ethical leadership. It is very important whether we provide ethical leadership. Another important, very important perspective that we learn as working in international financial institution, it's like give the bad news first, good news can come later. I think if there are issues, the leaders need to highlight it quickly, and so that on a collaborative basis, this can be handled. Communication skills, it is absolutely critical because you won't get much time, for interacting with maybe a global CEO or somebody. Actually, we get only 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So it's like within that time, you need to really pitch in. And many of the things that we get delivered or we get done internally is through presentations or conference calls or a very brief communication. So it is important that the communication skill, be it verbal, be it written, or body language, the leaders are really working on that. Lastly, I would mention the corporate athlete. Just think about an athlete's life. They have a 15 years of active career, but work so hard they work. But a corporate executive has to have around 35 to 40 years of high performance delivery. So remaining physically fit, healthy is of critical importance. So I call it corporate athlete. We must ensure that first we remain fit to deliver, and then come every morning to be absolutely in the sound mind and body. Thank you.
Great. It was so good to see how you connected the national potential to the leadership potential that is required to make it happen for us, inshallah. Just before I go to Dr. Ferhat Anwar, just a note to the panelists. So once we all finish, each of us have to give a 3 key takeaway. So just keep it in your mind so that we can share it with the audience. Dr. Ferhat Anwar.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you also to the organizers. Well, I'm wearing a different hat, not a corporate hat, but more of an academic hat. But I consider myself to be extremely lucky. Lucky in the sense that since I've been teaching for the last 30 plus years at IBA, the #1 sort of institution which has been lucky enough to produce the leaders of today. So therefore it has been inspiring, and also for me, I've learned a lot from the young minds of the yesteryears and also today. And there are certain things which I think has made me realize that how the leaders have changed, or how the perspective of leadership should be changed when we think of today. And let me explain. At IBA, what we were told to do as teachers was to tell our students, #1, that the teacher is the king. He or she knows everything, and that is what a leadership trait should be. So we told everyone that you've got to be assertive, and that is one of the way out for success. The other thing we told through our sort of teaching was that you've got to be systems oriented. You have to respect the system, create a system, and continue with that. The third thing that we wanted to tell our student was, and we continue to do so, is be innovative. So these 3 basic criteria was the focus that we always had. Of course, be assertive, be systematic, and make sure that you're also innovative. It worked out quite well, and the results were there in the real world, that most of the successful executives or managers were from IBA. So we applauded ourselves that we were doing a very good job. So as an academic, we were realizing that we were doing pretty good, until I wore another hat, which was that of a consultant. And I started mingling with the various sectors, irrespective. It was not just the pure business sector. We were having the development sector. I was mingling with even the politicians, and the success stories which we heard, that which was contributing not only to a growth of GDP 6+ over the years, but also taking a name across the globe as development partners in the form of whether they were peacekeeping troops or they were BRACs of the world, BRACs of Bangladesh, contributing to the development. I suddenly realized that not too many entrepreneurs or not too many of these development workers were actually from IBA. So they were probably doing something different than what we were preaching. And we further delved into it to find out what is it that they have done, and they've made this country proud. They've taken greater stride, probably than what we were preaching. And we could blend those things within us. Whether they were the garment sort of entrepreneur or something else. I realized within me that what we were doing is we were producing excellent managers, but not necessarily excellent leaders. So there was one gap that we needed to fulfill. So we further delved into it and to find out what is it that we were missing. I realized today that the first thing that we missed was we did not inculcate humility in them. We were making leaders who were really good. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that they were good. So they were good for a time when Bangladesh did not even know what the real corporate world was all about, did not even realize what business was all about, did not even realize what systems was. So during those days, the essence of systems, essence of being assertive was extremely important. And therefore, they did excellent during those periods. But as we have progressed, we need to add certain other things within them. The first, for me, is humility. The second, for me, is something that we've missed out was inclusiveness. And the third, for me, which is extremely important, are values. Values because, and let me explain in terms of what I mean by values or inclusiveness or for that matter, humility. Humility is something that helps us accept change. Accept the fact that we have not reached the end of the world. It tells us to go even further, to achieve greater heights. It tells us to what Arif was saying, listen to others. Listen to the younger minds. Listen to the new ideas. Listen to how technology is going to make changes or are actually making changes in the recent past and in today. And when we talk in terms of inclusiveness, what I could see was, and I do tell this to my students now, that multinationals are not the end of the world. But we have to realize that much larger group are actually contributing beyond the multinationals. And if you really look into the growth of this particular country, this country has been taken forward not by the multinationals, but by people who have run companies such as that of Arif's or Munawar's. So this is where the opportunity lies. So identifying the opportunities through the lens of inclusiveness is what is important. And that is also true in terms of markets. When we look at the bottom of the pyramid, we forget that there is a huge scope of doing better things there because that is where the opportunity lies. So leaders' eyes and mind needs to be inclusive in terms of their approach. And the third is having a value. Now this value-driven approach only leads into governance. For me, one of the major challenges that we face in Bangladesh is this issue of governance. And believe you me, I could give you even measures whereby just taking care of the governance issues, of course through certain values, can take us not just 6+, but probably 10+ in an overall country growth rate paradigm. So these three, I think, are the major things that we need to revisit, apart from, of course, being innovative. We cannot ignore innovation by any means. At times, we have to be assertive. Assertive not in terms of running individuals, but running our tasks. We cannot ignore values, particularly the values should be driven by purpose. This is one thing I always tell our young leaders. Is there any person here, even sitting here, who are 100% the same? The answer obviously is no. So if we are dissimilar, there are certain unique traits that we have within us. Should we search for that? That searching results in what we call purpose. And this purpose, if driven by values, will result in unique leaders and good leaders. where everybody will collaborate and put in their effort to give more. So my realization over the years has been that probably us who wear the academic hat need to shift gears, particularly when you talk in terms of Bangladesh or even beyond Bangladesh, and reassess in terms of what the leadership should have or what the leaders should have. And probably it is high time that this particular conference, in fact, is one of the places where we can discuss these issues and inculcate in our younger minds that probably that is the only way out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferhat Anwar. You have spoken truly like a teacher and a learner. And I guess your three key takeaway would be humility, inclusiveness, and be driven by values. Right? Great. So you've already done your efficiently. So before, just to repeat again, for the online question and answer, it's hashtag Leadership Summit. So can I request Arif to give the three key takeaway, please?
First of all, I really agree with the things said by the other panelists. I really think that it covers a lot of the ground, and so it's difficult, to talk about three things without overlapping directly. So I try to just highlight a slightly different angle, or maybe a different way of saying it. I think an authentic sense of purpose. So purpose, deep sense of purpose, and a good balance of passion and purpose, so that they can fuel each other. There is a purpose builds passion, passion builds purpose, and there is a kind of interplay. And here I would say, just to be a little technical, I would say 30% passion, 70% purpose. and just the mixture, it's like oxyacetylene, the combination of two gases, and but purpose and passion has to marry each other very nicely. So that aspect, because if there is a lot of passion without purpose, then it goes one way, and if there is a lot of purpose but no passion, then you cannot include many people. You cannot drive the force. So it's a mixture, and people should at least think about that mixture. Okay, that's one point. The other point is regarding the point about governance. So I'm going to talk about it from another angle. Governance, values, and authenticity. These things are actually, in many ways connected. We should all have the power to say no to some profits so that we can uphold values. So profit above values is something that I want everyone to have the strength to have, because ultimately that's what keeps you alive in the long run. Plus, even if it doesn't keep you alive, there should be something called moral imperative, and it has to be strong, very, very strong. We should be able to say no to wrong, absolutely, period. If that makes you poor, so be it. That is one thing I wanted to point out. And third point is openness of mind. Humility is connected to this. Openness of mind, meaning you have to allow all sorts of information to affect you. An open mind requires intellectual aggressiveness. Now, intellectual aggressiveness means that when you think, don't feel shy to stop somewhere. Be bold. Intellectual boldness and openness of mind go hand in hand and allow you to receive signals that go beyond, and you should practice it. You should actually meditate on how open your mind can be, because there are limitless things that the mind can see which it has seen before. So have the faith in yourself that openness of mind can take you to new places and new journeys that makes life exciting and very purposeful and meaningful.
Great. So authenticity and a balance of passion and purpose, governance and values, which leads to moral imperativeness, and openness of mind with intellectual rigorness. Great, thanks Arif. So it's Abrar now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sitting in between my favorite corporate leaders and also my direct teacher. So most of the things they've already said, but nevertheless, I'll just add a few things briefly. One is, I think, explore new horizon. I think the biggest thing that I would urge our leaders to do is explore new horizon and challenge the status quo. And the second one is basically get ready for the global stage. I think we are probably not aware of the opportunities that is sitting there in front of the people sitting here and also as a country. So we, for example, we have exported a lot of Bangladeshis to our global network. They're doing exceedingly well. Similarly, Bangladesh operation of Standard Chartered is amongst the top 10 with 99.99% local talent. So sometimes we don't realize the potential that we have. I think with this opportunity coming up, I think we need to be more confident. And lastly, everyone has mentioned is the value system and the ethical standards. There is no shortcut. It is sustainable to be ethical, to have absolutely fantastic value system, and that is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abrar. That's great. Explore the new horizon, challenge the status quo, get ready for the global stage, and keep that value and ethical standards intact, irrespective of whatever may come in terms of potentials and profits. Good. So I hope the panel had said so much, even if I try to add to that, it will be extensive repetition. I wouldn't get into that. I'll quickly go into a few of the questions that we have received. The first one is directly to Abrar. So, how do you help transform a great mid-level manager to take the next step, being a great leader? This has come from Rakib Alvi.
I think, first of all, I think in my leadership journey, I mentioned quite a bit that that manager has to find or be passionate about what that person is doing. What seldom we have seen that, oh boss, I am not happy, I want to move to the next role or something like that. But to move to the next role, actually you have to deliver 120% in your current role. And then learning, plus I think definitely that is there, plus delivering on the current role with dedication, sincerity, and also being participative. Always there is a need to do a bit of an extra. It is not that somebody will make me a leader tomorrow. It is something, 90% actually it's your own drive that needs to happen.
Great. So the next question is actually open, so any one of the three panelists can actually answer to that. Maybe perhaps more on Arif, suppose. Corporate focus more on KPIs than individual growth in Bangladesh. How that mindset can be shifted to build future leaders? This is from Tanzil, I think. Yeah. Arif, you want to answer to that?
I think the two has to go hand in hand. I actually agree with that statement. And we have to change that a little bit. But I think it's going to be, it's going to require us to align human motivation with social purpose in a more clear way. I don't think we communicate that well enough. We have to work toward that.
Great. So adding to what Arif said, I think, again, agreeing to him, that from corporate side, we believe that the more of the head and the heart has to work together, not too much of that and too little of that. So that will help to build the leaders that we want to build within our corporates and within our society. So, yes, sure. Yes, Dr. Ferhat Anwar.
I'll just share something which happened, in fact, day before yesterday, and this was on KPIs. So we were doing an assessment of a particular organization's performance of individuals, and we were looking at some of the comments that came in, and something that came in actually is extremely close to what you just said. And this individual said that I want to set my own KPIs. And we said, what do you mean? And this individual said, listen, the organization is telling me what to do through setting up the key performance indicators. But every time when I go to sleep, I dream of the future KPIs. Now, this is something which really touched me, that how should we start redefining KPIs? How should we set KPIs in terms of even individuals taking it forward? They are the leaders. They are the future leaders who actually know what to do even in their dream. And it really doesn't force them to stop from achieving just the KPIs and going beyond it. So it just happened day before, and it's surprising that this question came in.
Yeah, I think, as you said, the choice would be to have a combination of, like the individual giving a choice of the KPIs and where the other KPIs are aligned to the corporate goals and things like that. So, taking the prerogative as a moderator, I'll try to sort of conclude this session, and hope that all of us sitting here have done justice to your time and your participation, inshallah. Just a quick takeaway from my side is that leadership is about personal choice. It's about driving a purpose that has impact beyond the self, so meaningful purpose, greater purpose. And leadership is also about creating succession and be able to walk away from it. And that's always becomes a big challenge for leaders in our part of the world, that it's very difficult once you create something and you are so successful that you can actually walk away from it. So those would be the 3 takeaway note. And at the end, in terms of nation building, I would just want to quote a few lines before we conclude. And individual leadership, nation building and individual leadership. If greatness of purpose, smallness of means, and astounding results are 3 criteria of human genius, then who could dare to compare any great man in history with Prophet Muhammad? This was written by Lamartine, the French historian and educator. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was able to change his world and take his people from being the most insignificant, oppressed, and weakest to becoming the predominant, admired, and strongest in just 1 generation. If we learn how he was able to do it, we will be able to learn how to succeed in our world today, inshallah. Thank you, everybody. May Allah bless us all with good. Ameen. Thank you.